17, the chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gohmert, for 30 minutes.
Thanks so much, Mr. Speaker. It is indeed a pleasure to follow my good friend from Iowa, Steve King. I know Mr. King cares deeply about America, and not only cares deeply, but having been in private sector, in business, where he, like our president, was involved in building things and making things work and making things accessible. He has good solutions, and I have no doubt if he were not in Congress that he probably would have gotten the bid on the sections of the wall that the president's taking bids on even now. So we are at an interesting time, and it's been interesting to see some of the messages, some hurtful, some, I know the liberal papers like the Longview newspaper, they immediately pick up on any dissension in the Republican Party, especially if it's aimed at conservatives like me. I don't know why we use the term conservative. It used to be just somebody with common sense that believed in keeping our word, that believed in following the Constitution, because we seem to get in trouble when we don't follow the Constitution. For example, it makes very clear that everyone's supposed to have rights who is an American citizen. We can't assure the rights of every person in every other country. That would soon end to this remarkable experiment in a Republican form of government that we have here. It's really a democratic republic where you select representatives so that you don't have big gangs running around as a majority, wreaking havoc where people disagree with them. So we elect representatives so they can come together, they can hopefully read bills and not have to vote on them, so they can find out what's in them. Go ahead and read the bills in advance, and hopefully have something to do with the writing of the bills, especially things that affect people's health. So when we see messages like have come out today, it's unpleasant. One that was apparently sent out from the White House condemning the Freedom Caucus, apparently because we have the audacity to want Republicans, including those at the White House, to keep our promise. I still remain in favor, as my friends on the Freedom Caucus and a lot of others, we remain committed to our promise to repeal Obamacare. And I realize there can be honest disagreements. Some think if we give more power to Health and Human Services, just more government, more federal government, then give more power to the people we trust in the federal government, whom I do trust, then they can do what Congress is not willing to do, and that is repeal Obamacare and have a system in place that will assure people can get health care that's affordable. And the fact is, most people talk about we got to make sure people can get health insurance. And then over the years, they use the term health care synonymous with health insurance. And actually, the fact is, we should be most concerned about people, all Americans, having access to affordable health care, whether they have insurance or not. And one of the problems that health insurance has gotten into over the last 50 years is that health insurance has ceased to be insurance. And under Obamacare, health insurance was certainly not insurance. If you look up the root of insurance, you look up the word insure, insurance was intended to be something you could purchase very cheaply that would insure against an unforeseeable event, some point in the future, maybe a catastrophic accident, a disease, chronic disease, something that you don't expect and you hope never happens. And the insurance companies, it's actually a form of legalized wager that you're paying a little amount hoping that never happens, but just in case it does, insurance will be able to take care of it at that point. But we've long since lost the idea of true insurance. People began paying insurance, health insurance companies, not to insure against an unforeseeable event in the future, but to pay them to manage their health care, to tell their doctors what medication they could prescribe, what procedures they would cover to help their patients, telling the patients which doctors they could see. And actually, the truth is, as the federal government got more and more involved, we saw less and less insurance and more insurance companies managing people's health care. And the managing insurance companies were actually following the lead of the federal government. So the more laws we pass regarding health care and insurance, the more the federal government had a say in people's health care and well-being, and the more insurance companies moved into a management role, much as the federal government and Medicare and Medicaid moved into a governing role. And this morning, I'm just meeting with constituents that are very caring individuals, and they provide health centers that are extremely affordable, very, very cheap, but provide quality care for people that can't afford the care, and they don't have to go to the emergency room, which costs more than going to a clinic for minor matters. It saves a lot of money. It's a lot cheaper. And, of course, emergency room care is about the most expensive care you can get, and people that don't have insurance, they often go line up at emergency rooms, which drives up the cost of everybody's health care and everybody's health insurance. So we can break the cycle of that, and I understand there are very well-meaning friends on the Republican side of the aisle that think if we just give the federal government, give Health and Human Services more power to control all of this, we have a guy in place that I do believe can do great things to cure the ills of health care. My problem is if we don't repeal the outrage known as Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, which is really unaffordable, if we don't actually repeal it here in the House, have the Senate repeal it, then no matter how much those in the executive branch and those in Health and Human Services, including my friend that's Secretary, no matter how much they do to help Americans, the next liberal that comes in, the next Kathleen Sebelius, who comes in thinking she knows more of what's best for you than you do, then all of those great reforms will go out the window. And because the Secretary will have more authority and more ability to make regulation under the Republican proposed bill, then I'm quite certain that somebody that comes in like Sebelius that knows better what you need than you do will make sure that the regulations and the overreach becomes even more burdensome. I totally understand the president's frustration. He was told that the bill would basically repeal Obamacare, and the truth is, I totally agree with the president. We need to act. Something Justice Scalia told to a group from my home. in Tyler, there were probably 50 or 60 seniors that came up. I asked, is there something special you'd like to see or do while you're here? They said, well, you seem to be friends with Justice Scalia. Do you think we could meet him? Well, I'll ask. Well, son of a gun, Justice Scalia found the time, and we met him over at the Supreme Court, and one of them, he said, well, what questions you ask? He didn't start with a speech. He said, well, okay. Louie said you wanted to meet me. Here I am. What questions you got? And he leaned back against the table at the front of the room, and nobody said anything. Oh, come on. I've taken time. I want to come here and let you meet me. I loved how abrupt he was and straight to the point. And he said, come on, here I am. Have the courage, ask a question. One of our seniors said, well, Justice Scalia, would you say that the United States is the most free country in the history of the world because of our Bill of Rights, that it's the best ever? And Justice Scalia surprised me, but then I thought, well, yeah, he's exactly right. He said, oh, gosh, no, the Soviets had a better Bill of Rights than we have. It had a lot more rights in there. No. The reason we're the most free country in the history of the world is because the founders did not trust government. So they gave us a constitution that tried to put many obstacles as it possibly could between people in Washington, at the time first New York, Philadelphia, and then Washington, but people at the federal level creating laws or regulations. They want it as hard as possible. That's why the president's not a prime minister selected by the Congress. It's why we have 3 branches instead of 1 or 2. They wanted to make it hard to pass laws. And he went into further deliberation on that, very informative. And he was exactly right. I studied the Soviet government, and I remembered in college when I was at Texas A&M, I did a paper. I got an A on it about the Soviet Constitution, the Soviet rights. They did have more rights spelled out. But the trouble is, their founders wanted government to do things and trusted government implicitly so that it was a totalitarian, so the Bill of Rights they wrote meant nothing. Constitution meant nothing. And that's where we're headed here. It's with bureaucrats having taken charge over people's personal lives, their health care, their financial situations, usurping or at least getting copies of people's finance records. Used to have to get a warrant to do that. Now the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau just gets them when they want to. That should be illegal. It should be unconstitutional. It should require a warrant with probable cause established under oath that a crime has been committed and this person probably committed. I used to sign warrants if probable cause was established. Not anymore. Under Obama, the Congress, Democratic Congress, passed a law saying, yeah, let them do whatever they want to help us, somehow help us with our financial situation. Well, when you combine what they've done with NSA, CIA, and Justice Department has done to invade people's rights, we're severely limited in the privacy we once had. And I know there were people that were shocked that Congress passed a bill regarding internet privacy rights, but the fact is, and our party should have done a better job of getting the message out what it really did. It just repealed the intrusion that the Obama administration had with regulation and got us back to where we were a few years ago. So there's still protections. It's just not the intrusiveness of the federal government that President Obama created. Some of us were convinced that he was not as concerned with privacy rights as we were or as others in America were. And he was not as concerned about the United States control of the Internet as we were, because that's, he gives away the ability to do websites to an international group instead of trusting the United States. That's different. President Obama didn't trust the United States to be fair to the world. Those of us in Congress thought, at least on our side of the aisle, thought we would do a better job. I still think we'll do a better job. But what's been heartbreaking the last day and a half is to see it doesn't appear that Republican leaders are trying to work with conservatives to get to a solution. We've now seen the solution is go to war with those who want to stand on the Constitution. Contact everybody who donates to the National Republican Congressional Committee, the National Republican Party. Contact the big donors and who donate to candidates and make sure they send messages to all the Republicans. They better get on board and vote for a bill that those people that are calling never read, like some of us have, that they didn't research. They're just trusting the people they've been donating to do the right thing. And if that were the case, Republicans would have repealed Obamacare a long time ago, and it would have been the first thing we took up in January. And we would never have had Obamacare because Republicans would have stopped it when we did have the chance. We had multiple chances, but that's another story for another day. I'm sorry. This bill is going to ultimately result in Republicans losing the majority, but that's not my number one concern. Yes, it bothers me that I think this bill could lose to our loss of majority in 2018. And yes, it concerns me that from what I'm hearing from friends across the aisle, the first thing they want to do if they get the majority in 2018 is impeach and remove from office Donald Trump. And so it's really been amazing to see the war develop the last day and a half, that those in October who stood with the president when our leaders were saying, forget Trump, our numbers are clear, he has no chance of winning, so our best hope is to every member, Republican member, save yourself, win your election, so that when Hillary Clinton is president next January, we can in the House rein her in. But I am so grateful the rank and file of our party stood fast and said, no, if Trump doesn't win, we're not going to rein in President Hillary Clinton. She'll do whatever she wants. Heck, we couldn't even get our party to impeach Koskinen when the guy clearly lied to us here. Other members of the cabinet in the Obama administration clearly lied. And we couldn't get our group together to remove perjuring people from the cabinet. At least now, hopefully we're going to get the documentation that shows the kind of crimes that were being committed in the last administration. But in the meantime, people are hurting. They need their premiums to come down. And I know we can trust Health and Human Services in this administration to try to bring down costs. But the words of my late friend, Justice Scalia, if you guys in Congress with the power to repeal a bad bill don't have the guts to do it, don't come running across the street to us and ask us to repeal your bad bill. Heck, just go to the floor, repeal the bad law, and leave us alone. That's all I'm asking, Mr. Speaker. The courts have not worked out extremely well for people that love the Constitution in recent years. And I know the president's frustrated. He's probably nearly as frustrated as I am, almost maybe. And I'm told that maybe some of these anti-Freedom Caucus tweets were originated with his chief of staff, Mr. Priebus. But I want to suggest, as Sam Rayburn did when he was Speaker, my friends, Mr. Speaker, the Republican brothers and sisters are not your enemy. They're your friends. They want to repeal Obamacare, bring down costs, get more control back to people. If we pass a bill that doesn't bring down premiums and give American people hope, and not give more power to the government, hope they do a better job in this administration, then we will deserve to be voted out. I just hope, Mr. Speaker, we will do what we promised to do. I hope those who are getting calls and emails demanding they call their representatives, if they've been big donors, tell their congressman to remove, to get on board with the bill. I hope they'll trust us that are reading the bills on their behalf. I yield back.